Okay, here we are. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you see this. Miss Simpson, World History Overview, World War One, and the events that were subsequent to World War One. All right, here we go. I'm going to do a quick overview based on the video that you should have watched last week and some extra tidbits that I want to share with you. All right, the causes of World War One. There are causes and then there's the catalyst. The causes were the underlying huge big reasons why the war even happened. The catalyst was the one event that initiated the whole thing and set everything in motion. Those are two different things. So the causes, as many of you listed in your exit ticket, good job, were nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and the alliance system. Those were the causes, okay? So nationalism, as countries became stronger within themselves in their identification with their nation, the people, the citizens. Imperialism, as people went around the world adding to their empires. That was what World War One was about, and ultimately that was what World War Two would become about. People adding to their empire, people making their the size of their country and the size of their group of people bigger, stronger, more economically powerful, and so forth. Militarism, building up their military, building up their weapons. This is where the machine gun came in. The alliance system, we're going to talk about that, but basically, if you were allies with another country and they were fighting, you had to fight too. Very simple. Well, not simple, but that was what brought so many other countries into this world war that would not have normally been fighting anybody. So, this is all going to be in the notes that you have given to you in Google Classroom. So, there's no need to copy these. Plus, you should have seen these in the video. But I wanted to go over them. Devotion to your country, building empires, developing your armed forces, and being allies, and that leading to international mayhem. These were the four causes. The alliance systems, you had the Triple Alliance, which was Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Then you had the Triple Entente. The easiest way for me to remember the Entente is that France was part of it. Entente is a French word, and therefore that's how you remember who was with who. Great Britain, France, and Russia were part of the Triple Entente. Then you had things switch up, and you had it become the Allied powers versus the Central powers. So you had a switch up, and you had a whole bunch more people join the fight. You had the Allied, the Central, and then of course you had neutral countries: Switzerland, Albania, Spain, Morocco, the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. All of these countries chose not to participate at all. Okay, so you had some countries that were like, I'm going to pass, I'm not doing that. And those were your neutral countries. Very important to note those because the United States tried to remain neutral as long as possible and isolationist, and we're not doing that. That's over there. That's those people. So you didn't just have the United States being that way. You had other countries that didn't participate at all. The assassination. This was your catalyst to the war. Okay, this was, oh my goodness, this happened. Now everything kind of busts loose and everything happens. And that would be Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. And they had a very sweet love story, which made it even sadder that they got killed. Anybody being murdered is going to be sad. Some people say some people deserve it, but killing people, yeah. So there you have it. The catalyst. Boom. You wanted sound effects? You got them. So, the other part about the war, and I'm not going to go into this too much, but you had the trench fighting, okay? You had 25,000 miles of trenches built across Europe so people could be down in those trenches and fight each other. That's a lot of miles of trenches. The United States is 3,000 miles across. So figure that times 8, add 1,000. That's a lot. Or add 1, I mean. And that's a lot of thousand of miles, right? So think about all the digging it took to dig these trenches where people lived during this time. And the thing about the trenches, you have to think about what it was like to be in them. You're like in muddy water all the time. Like people develop this thing called trench foot, and their feet would like be rotting. And think about the smell and what it would be like for your feet to always be wet. Like think about if your feet are always wet, like just wet and nasty all the time for like months or years. Probably not years, but a long time. That's a lot. Okay. So, and there's a scene if you go to the movie Wonder Woman where it's fictitious, and of course she's a superhero and that's fiction. But there's a scene where they show the trenches and her going across, with her superpowers across no man's land and helping to conquer the other side. And it just gives you an idea of what it might have been like, even though obviously it's fiction. But it's something that I tend to show my classes. So when I have my class in front of me on our virtual lesson, we're going to look at it. Okay, so another aspect of the war that was a part of the ugly side of it was the barbed wire. One of the things they did to kill people and capture them was first they had barbed wire put up, which you get caught in. Then they would release mustard gas, which would blind them. And then they'd be sitting ducks and they'd shoot them. And there's another movie called Legend of the Fall where one of the characters dies that way. And it's so sad and pathetic, but that's what happened to a lot of people. So these are some more pictures of the trench warfare, what it was like to be down in the trenches. One of the things about World War I is that you had a lot of information about it because people took a lot of pictures. This is a time when a lot of photographs were taken, but you also had a lot of letters. They had a lot of time in those trenches, so they would write letters to their sweethearts, to their parents, to their siblings, dear so-and-so. So you got a lot of what we call primary sources from that time period, from the letters that people wrote while they were stuck in the trenches. So the last thing I wanted to do very quickly is kind of talk about one of the reasons why the United States got involved was the sinking of a ship. Another reason why the United States got involved was Germany connected with Mexico and were trying to form an alliance with them, which was very close to home for us. And we've always had conflict with Mexico, even though our neighbor, and that caused problems. I wanted to go over the notes that you all were supposed to take and just kind of write out some that I got from the video. One of the most important results from World War I was that because Germany in the Treaty of Versailles was forced to pay a lot of money and to provide a lot of restitution, the people in Germany were rendered poor and they were angry and they felt put upon because of the conditions of the treaty. That led to the rise of Hitler. When you have a bunch of angry people who have no money, somebody can come in very easily and tell them, hey, if you follow me, I'm going to take you to where, everything will be great. All you have to do is this. So Hitler had a prime group of people ready to be led completely astray. And that was what World War I was the road to the horrible things that happened in World War II. Again, as I said, the catalyst of the war was the assassination of Ferdinand and Sophie. What made it a worldwide thing was the alliance system. One of the main factors of the war was the trenches, as I said. One of the interesting aspects of World War I and, of course, the subsequent World War II was the British Empire and all the different people from across the world that fought under the British, as well as all of the African nations that were part of imperialism that fought under the French. The casualties of the war. Now, right now, we're understandably upset over hundreds of thousands of people being killed by this coronavirus, right? But during World War One, a total of 15 million people were killed. During World War Two, it was even more because you had the Russians, you had 25 million, you had the 11 million Jews and gypsies and homosexuals and some blacks mixed in and some sympathizers mixed in. So you had a lot of people killed in those wars, but you had 15 million. This was what they called the war to end all wars because they didn't know World War II was coming. You had a lot of people killed from the flu. You had them killed from diseases that we don't even think about now because they're only in third world countries like cholera, typhus, and dysentery. One of the major causes of death in the actual fighting, as I mentioned, was the barbed wire and the machine guns. One of the conditions people had was what they call trench foot. And again, one of the ways we know so much about the individual people involved was because of all the video and the photographs and the personal letters that people preserved and saved, which was a good thing for a historian. The end result, Treaty of Versailles, the demand for payback from Germany, which crippled the country and made them furious and whipped them up into a frenzy, which led to Hitler. Another result of this war was the revolution in Russia that led to communism, which led to the Cold War, which led to conflict between the United States and Russia and the entire world, which led to the Korean War and then the Vietnam War and the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Russia was bonding with Cuba to come against us. And so you had all of this stuff stem from World War One. I mean, one thing comes after another. And it's good to always know where it stemmed from. World War One is where all this stemmed from because you had the Russian Revolution stem from World War One. That's where Lenin came in and said, hey, I can help you all. Just become communist. And we're going to talk about in our class what it means to be communist, what it means to be socialist. Because in the United States, obviously we're capitalist, or we try to be, or we're sort of. We, in this country, historically have considered communists and communism, the concept, to be the enemy of what we are. And the idea of the government owning too much or controlling too much has always been a major problem for people in this country. But in other countries, communism has in some ways helped them, but in some ways hurt them. Because the problem with the concept of communism is that it's hard to take naturally competitive people and tell them, just do this, don't do that, when their natural instinct is to do what they are, maybe some would say, put here to do. Okay? Some major other issues or results from the war would be the Ottoman Empire ended. We have Turkey now. We don't have the Ottoman Empire. We don't talk about that anymore. And the United States became a world player. They became much bigger as a result of the need for their involvement in this war. So, we are going to be looking at some primary sources in your next assignment. So be looking for that. And when we have our sessions on Thursday, we're going to go over how to look at those and what questions to answer for your assignment. Okay? So here's your video. Just wanted to touch base so you know what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to go over this. So if you don't watch the video, you can participate in that. And that would be fine too. Okay. Thanks.